Shopping for bourbon can be really confusing. When you go out there, there are so many choices and so many price points. Sometimes it's hard to know where to spend your money. So I want to spend some time on this video talking about something that I think is very important when you're making your bourbon purchasing decisions, and it's this. Age isn't always the most important thing. So let me give you an example. I have here 2 bottles of bourbon, both from Old Zach, but they're very different. So this one is a 9-year Old Zach that was distilled in Bardstown, and this is a 16-year Bruzel Buff Turkey pick that was distilled in Frankfurt. Let me get this right. Distilled in Frankfurt, aged in Lawrenceburg. There was a time where, while Turkey was having some of their bourbons contract distilled by Buffalo Trace, so this one is considered a Buff Turkey. So 9 years of age, 16 years of age. Now, there are obviously difference in prices too, but if you go online or if you're shopping and you see something like this, does the 16-year automatically mean that it's better than the 9-year? And the answer is no. These are 2 different animals. So the 9-year, if you think about a scale where, let's say, oak is on one side of the scale and sweetness and some of those traditional bourbon vanilla flavors, caramel flavors are on the other, this one, the 9-year, is kind of 50-50. 9 years is plenty of age, by the way. You can take a look at the color here, 136 proof. I mean, this is no slouch. But at 9 years of age, there's going to be a balance between the oak notes, those wood notes, the tannic, sort of that bitterness that you can get along with the oak, and in balance with the sweetness, with the vanilla, the caramel, and the brown sugars. It's in balance. It's a very, very nice drinking experience, and it's super tasty. This one is different. Now, obviously, different distillery, so there's a different mash bill. But putting that aside, at 16 years of age, this is completely different. So in this one, the oak is way up here, and the sweetness is way down here. And that's what I find in a lot of bourbons as they get older, especially Kentucky bourbons or any bourbon that's aged in a hot climate, that over time, the oak notes are going to tend to dominate the flavor profile. So more of those woody notes, that lacquered wood. And it's sometimes it can be sweet oak and sometimes it's more of a tannic oak, but more of a drying finish and less of the sweetness. And I think at some point, not with this one, but at some point, sometimes bourbons can be over oaked where it just tastes like wood water and you're not really getting any of the familiar bourbon notes. And for me personally, I like both of these, but in general, I tend to reach for the ones that maybe are in like the 8 to 12 year range. Because I tend to like my bourbons a little bit on the sweet side. This is phenomenal. This may be an exception to that. This is a bit of a unicorn, but still, as a drinking experience, this one it punches you in the face. It's got a lot of flavor, a lot of oak, and if you like that, fantastic. But doesn't necessarily mean that's better. Now here's another example. Here are 2 bottles of 2 bottles of Templeton Rye. This is their 10-year. They also have a 6-year, which is delicious. This is the 10-year, and this is the 13-year. And I think this is a similar experience with these 2. Both are really tasty, but as you go up the scale, again, this is balanced. And this 10-year probably is a little bit easier on the palate than the 9-year-old Zach. This one comes in at 52% ABV, so lower in proof. But this, as a rye, is a much easier drinking experience, smoother, if you will, but definitely more towards the sweet, some of those candy-like notes that you get on certain ryes, along with some nice balanced oak, but the oak isn't predominant. Whereas on the 13-year, big difference, the 3 years of aging. This again, big oak. I think to some degree it maybe drowns out some of the rye notes, where you're going to get more of the wood and less of some of those other things too. Again, it's not better or either or, but typically an older age statement's going to be more expensive. So I think as you're shopping and before you drop, for some of these bottles, several $100s, and some of them, maybe that Buff Turkey, could be $500-600. I don't even know what it goes on secondary. I wouldn't say that you should reflexively just grab the one that's higher in age and assume it's better. I think it's a great time to, whether you're going to a bar or you're going to a friend's house, try different age statements. But I think over time, like me, you'll probably find what your sweet spot is as far as your palate. Some people the oakier, the better, and other people maybe like something that's sweeter, or maybe for some people, even the 10-year might be too much. So everybody's different. Now with Scotch, it's a little bit different. If you're a Scotch drinker, you could have a 30, 40-year-old Scotch that still isn't oaky for a variety of reasons. The climate in Scotland is much cooler and much more balanced, so you're not driving the whiskey in and out of the wood, so you're not extracting as much of the tannins. That's number one. Number two, a lot of Scotch is aged in ex-bourbon barrels, and those ex-bourbon barrels have already given up a lot of the char and a lot of those oaky notes to the first fill. And when you go for the second fill, it's going to be much sort of milder. And again, some Scotches are, let's say, filled in, let's say, port or sherry or other secondary barrels. So there's a lot of reasons that you can get a Scotch, again, 20, 30, 40 years of age, that doesn't have the oak characteristics that some of the 10-year bourbons do. So a lot of it has to do with climate too. So that's just a little bit of a primer, I think, on an age. But remember that the higher age statements typically carry a higher price tag. And I hate to see somebody go out and drop a ton of money on something and maybe have it be too much for them. So something to think about next time you're shopping. Hope this helps. Cheers.